Okay. I guess we'll get started. So, the main reason, and I'm recording this just for people who couldn't come. The main reason I wanted to get this set up is just because I see a lot of negativity and people getting pretty, not necessarily upset, but frustrated with that negativity. I see it in Mythic Keys, I see it in Guild Chat. Some of the comments that I got on like the anonymous submission was pretty much in line with that. One individual had said like they are not the best at keys, and they find keys a little bit not intimidating, but you know they're just not familiar with them, and then they see all of this negativity about how much it sucks to pug and everything sucks, and then they're like, well, now I definitely don't want to do that. So trying to address that and seeing where I guess that's stemming from within the guild, and if we can do anything to fix that. So I guess I will open it up if anyone wants to make comments, questions, or concerns known. I know a couple of you have also submitted things or DM'd me privately or DM'd Mocha. So, yeah.
Sorry,
I'm
I was
Gucci.
muted. I think that I would say a large contributing factor to a lot of people's mind spaces right now. I know specifically mine because I've talked about it when it comes to my work, is kind of the state of the world at the moment, specifically
Yeah.
the United States, for those of us who live here. And I think that it's difficult sometimes to disconnect from that, even though that's kind of like the point of, playing a video game. It's difficult to kind of like shut that part of the brain off, and then we, as a guild, really kind of like run on this platform of, politics is a no-no, we're nonpartisan and all that stuff. And while I understand that, I think that we have a lot of people that are being really affected by this from, a professional standpoint as well as a personal standpoint, and people are scared. So I don't know how we navigate those feelings while still trying to remain kind of a nonpartisan open space for folks.
Yeah. No, I totally get that, and yes, like WoW is supposed to be one of those places where you can disconnect from your real world and become somebody else for a little while. And I totally get why that is difficult currently. I think, you know, politics aside, even within the world at large, it's becoming harder and harder to separate your internet self from your real self, I suppose. I don't have the answer as far as how we address those feelings with also remaining nonpartisan. I toy with the idea of allowing it or allowing a vent space, but I think that opens a whole can of worms that we are not ready or able to accept at this point. Especially, I think if we had a channel like that, it would basically need to be policed 24/7 to make sure that it's not just going to absolutely rip apart from the inside.
Yeah. It's a weird time. I just gotta say,
Yeah.
like, it's just a weird time. There's a lot of like really shitty things happening to people that I really care about, so it's hard to separate that just from a personal standpoint for me specifically.
Sure, and again, like, I see how that spills over into the game of, most of the time, it's it's not, hey, I had a shitty pug and I'm just gonna go ballistic because of it. It's like, hey, this was the last straw today. Like, I had a shitty day and X, Y, and Z happened, and then I log on to play WoW for a little bit, and we brick my key, and that was just a step too far. So I get it, and I'm in no way saying that we have, negative people or people are intentionally doing it or anything like that. I think a lot of the time it is, one, people prescribing emotions to typing, which sometimes get misconstrued, or a lot of the time gets misconstrued. And I think the other part of that is just the level of exasperation that people deal with daily outside of the game.
Yeah.
Do people have other comments, opinions, thoughts, ideas, anything along that line?
I would just say, like, something to remember is that tone is lost in text. And, like, I know they sometimes just got to step back and read what you say from a different tone, because it's going to be completely lost on people that don't know you in real life. And, like, I haven't been affected by it personally, but that's what I feel when I read that whole situation that happened. I felt like it was just a case of tone was lost in text.
Yeah. Yeah. And I've spoken to some of the individuals, and whenever I speak to them, it's like, hey, it didn't mean to come off that way, or I wasn't intending it that way at first, and then people get lost in the sauce as they're trying to get their viewpoint across. So, and I understand that, and people, to their credit, have said, yep, I was totally in the wrong, and I will be more cognizant of that moving forward, which I appreciate. And again, this guild is not somewhere where we're gonna needlessly punish people at every step. It's, hey, you fucked up, you acknowledge the mistake, and you're improving it, and that's realistically all I can ask from people. There are definitely hard lines in the sand that we have had to remove people in the past, but I haven't seen that in a very long time, which is good.
Or is it something that's just condemning of the whole group?
Sorry, you cut out there a little bit on my end. What was that?
I was just curious if this is something that's kind of isolated in the guild between a subset of certain individuals, or is this something we're finding as being more almost like an epidemic kind of deal, where it's like it's spreading throughout?
I think it starts with certain individuals. I think the situation, at least from my perspective, is season 1 of Mythic Plus was rough, and I think that colored a lot of viewpoints about Mythic Plus as a endgame content, and from there, I think going into season 2, people were already frustrated with coming out of season 1, and continued to be frustrated with pugs or situations or whatever it might be, moving into season 2. I think because, so for example, back in season 3 and season 4 of Dragonflight, it was much more like, hey, I'm doing this key, I can take 2 DPS and a tank, or whatever it is, and that was a lot more common of a situation to see in guild chat or in Discord. And because we sort of got out of that habit in season 1 and people sort of began running either with set groups or outside of the guild or whatever it might have been, I think we got out of the habit of checking in with guildies first and going from there. And I also understand, there are people who are not up to running a 10, right now. Like my gear currently probably would not get past a 10. So there are people who are hesitant of like, I would like to bring guildies, however, I don't want my key bricked. And it's a fine line to walk of, hey, I want to get this content done, and I also don't want to be an asshole by saying, like, I don't think that you are geared enough or prepared enough or experienced enough or whatever it might be to do a 10. And that's like a tricky social situation to navigate on the fly and in guild chat.
I mean, is this something that can be helped with, like, doing some, like, carry night type things where we bring some people that, have a bad picture of Mythic Plus and just bring them in and kind of, like, help them through and let them see where they stand in a way? Maybe pull up on an alt or something like that so you don't care about the key?
Yeah, we've done that in the past to great success. Typically, that is... We would usually do those kind of nights when a raid group as a whole was sort of behind, either in gear or experience or whatever it might have been. So the original team night, we had run a couple of times like that. We just divvied up the group and said, all right, you guys are going as a group, you guys are going as a group, you guys are going as a group. And that was like the raid time. I think the other thing that we run into is like the difference in free time that people have. So, for example, I'm typically busy, on weeknights, but I have time on the weekend, and then somebody might only be able to do like their current raid nights as far as disposable time. But yeah, it's definitely something that we have thought about in the past. We wanted to get something like that underway back in Dragonflight, and it just never took off due to other things taking priority. But it's something that we could definitely circle back to and see if we can kind of get something a little bit more formalized and on the books.
Well, the only reason I say that was more like maybe use it as like a way to reset the opinions on Mythic Plus, because like you mentioned, season 1 was pretty rough, and a lot of people kind of got a bad opinion of it, and it might be worthwhile to maybe help to reset the stage and kind of curve some of that negativity.
Sure. Yeah, I think that is a definitely workable idea. We can probably get something going into the end of March or start of April. I know that there's some stuff that's already like set as far as people having time off or raid nights and things like that, but we can maybe put together something a couple of weeks out so people have time to schedule and move things around if they want to attend. Yeah, I'm definitely down for that.
I think really the guild could do with a lot more community engagement in games specifically. I know that we used to do that, and I think everybody just got super busy, and I know that the 3 teams are working on Prague at the moment, so that like becomes a stressor. But I definitely think that as like heroic bosses are going down, and we're moving into the spring months and things like that, doing things like Key Nights is great, Transmog Nights is great. I mean, Kara and I love to run weekly transmog things and things like that, so I definitely think that it just gets more people involved, because there's a lot of people, I mean, as an officer, like there are a lot of people that I just don't know that have joined over the last couple of months.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Yeah, I think overall the teams mesh a little less than they used to. I know it's difficult for Dusk just because they're so far out of like what Eastern Standard Time people are doing. Like they're the late night crew, which I get. It's a lot of West Coast people or people who work shifts and get off later at night or whatever it ends up being that schedule works for them. But one of the things I think towards the end of this tier that I want to get back to is doing the like off nights or drunk nights or whatever it might be, bring it all to heroic. We'll just blast through it and have a good time. I don't think we got a lot of that towards the end of the first season because we were pushing for a lot longer than we usually did. Typically we were calling it 3 or 4 weeks, and we really only called it 2-ish weeks before we got the announcement for the new content.
Yeah, last year was tough. I think as a whole, raid and keys for sure. Like last year was really tough.
Yeah.
You were
Yeah.
just weak. That's all it was. Hey! Hey, I have a warning for anybody that watches Solo Leveling. Do not watch this week's episode.
Crom, read the room, man.
Oh, my bad. I just said,
Goddamn
don't watch
idiots.
it. Wait till next week.
Okay, yeah, so I mean, just sort of getting a little bit more camaraderie towards the end of the tier. I know it's difficult as we're setting out on Prague, and I know that that's a long way away, but I think having some key nights in the near future will hopefully reset that opinion, get a little bit more positivity generated around keys and the Discord in general, and sort of just get people back into the idea of interacting with other guildies that they might not interact with on a regular basis. Does anybody else have any other comments, concerns, ideas, anything they want to get off their chest? I know it's a rather small group, and it's, I wanted to sort of... I thought that the urgency of this sort of needed to take priority, which is why I'm recording it, and people can watch it at their leisure and make comments or DM people about whatever.
Yeah, I mean, I think that this was definitely helpful for me at least, and kind of get things out there and all of that. But
yeah, definitely. All right. We will have another one of these tomorrow at the same time, just for people who couldn't make today. And, feel free to come back. There might be different topics. There might be different ideas thrown around, or watch I guess this is a VOD technically. But yeah, I appreciate you guys coming out, and, taking some time and just talking through stuff. At the end of the day, we want to make this a community where people feel good, safe, and valued, I suppose. So, thank you.
thank you.
Thank you. I do like the idea of more guild events. I think that's something we had going for a bit, and I think that would help everybody's state. Going back, I don't want to call it casual content, but non-stressful group building exercises.
Yeah. No, I totally get it. And casual, I don't think is necessarily the right word. I would say laid back. We're not...
Yes.
It's not show up in grays and dick around sort of thing, but it's come and have a good time and, shoot the shit and drink, smoke, whatever it is that you want to do, and just enjoy vibing with the guild. Awesome. All right, I'm gonna cut the recording here. Thank you guys. I appreciate it. If you're around tomorrow, check in.